All right, here's
All right.
another installment of the Asic Miner podcast. Some
Yeah.
big topics today. Over right the day before, I think it was actually July 3rd. There was a Wall Street Journal article saying that China had restricted exports of gallium and germanium, which are two rare earth metals out of a list of I think around 40 that are used in the semiconductor industry. And it's the 50% of all gallium that was imported into the United States over the last year had come from China. So this was a pretty big blow to gallium inventories. Now, uh, for people that are not aware, gallium is a rare earth metal that's being looked at as an alternative to silicon, as a way of increasing the density of microprocessing. So, so silicone has it starts to burn up after it gets certain density, but gallium is able to have a higher heat tolerance, and that's why they're looking at it as an alternative for microchip processing manufacturing. So interesting. It was an interesting move, ploy from the CCP to be that proactive in cutting off supply on two particular rare earth metals. The U.S. response to that was to try to introduce legislation that would make it mandatory for companies like Amazon Web Services and Google to uh, to have to get special permission from the U.S. government in order to do offer cloud computing services to companies in China. So I think that this is an interesting time in history that what we're seeing. So let me first get what do you think on when you hear these stories? What's going on through your head, Austin? Oh, can you still
Sorry
hear me?
about that.
It's all right. You still hear me?
Yeah, I keep getting some calls
Oh,
that interrupt things, but yeah, I mean, I just think that's very interesting. Those metals are some very important rare earth metals. We've even been using them for thermal conductivity for like a replacement for thermal stuff like that. It's also very corrosive material. I think if you introduce it to aluminum and whatnot, it can basically take down an entire airplane, make it really brittle. Um, Same thing with like mercury as well. But seeing that they're banning it, I don't know what in that article does it say that they're banning all exports, or are they just kind of saying no exports of that material to the U.S. is kind of
but
my
it was
question.
yeah, I think it was specifically the U.S., but I couldn't. I was just looking for the article again to be able to reference it directly, and I couldn't find it. So, um, but I think that I think it's definitely restricted in the U.S. and it could be restricted globally, but it's definitely restricted to the U.S.
So if it is globally, that just means that they probably want to keep all the material for themselves as much as possible. Um, Also being that we're talking about banning them from using, all of our servers and the ability to do like AI and stuff like that. I also think that that would make them want to start making their own, which I think they pretty much already are doing. So they already have things like WeChat and a lot of other platforms out there to replace all the other platforms the rest of the world kind of uses. Um, so I think, I don't know, it's kind of a double-edged sword there for sure. Because if we ban them from using it, it just means that they'll probably just start building their own infrastructure a little quicker than if we didn't ban it. At the same time, we're also restricting access to it, so it'd prevent them from, getting that initial boost. So I don't know, definitely interesting times,
Yep.
that's for sure.
here's actually an updated article from the Wall Street Journal today. China's move to limit exports of two key minerals is likely to accelerate moves to diversify supply chains away from the country, as governments and industries seek to limit fallout from the U.S. and China's escalating economic rivalry. Industrial experts say China's move, viewed as retaliation against U.S. export restrictions aimed at curbing Beijing's high technology industries, is unlikely to immediately hit global output of semiconductors and other products, in part because Beijing would be hurting its own technology industry if it has implemented the controls too strictly. But it has sounded the alarm for countries that stand to be hit. So essentially, these two rare earth metals in particular are more used, and I think the industries at broad realize how this is affecting it. Like this is sounding some sort of alarm signal, and it's definitely something to keep an eye on because, my opinion, I've been trying to say this for a while. Like there's the two main things that is being propagated here is that I think that China wants to take Taiwan, but they want to do it without actually having to go into open conflict, right? And I think they're trying to set up for that. I think they've been trying to make to bring their power to dominance on a global scale, so that Taiwan becomes a concession by the world, other world parties, and that's smart on their part for sure. Definitely don't want to destroy the resources that are there with 60% of the world's semiconductor manufacturing, happening from TSMC facilities over in Taiwan. So I think that's the first thing. But the second thing is, kind of people need to understand that we may not be in open conflict with China, but we're definitely in, something the size that would mean that we're at kind of almost at war with them already, with as much as we've been dealing, or from our governments have been dealing behind the scenes in the cyber world. I think that uh, it, these are just escalating issues, and now that we're actually seeing them in the media, in mainstream media, this could be signaling that things are leading towards an open conflict. I hope not. Certainly hope not. But this is kind of where you start to see the narratives that certain uh, media outlets start to propagate. And I think as time goes on, it's going to get constantly more and more anti-Chinese, and that's conditioning everybody for the next step. Unfortunately, I think that's where the path that we're heading towards.
Yeah, I definitely see that we're in a different kind of era when it comes to war tactics. We've kind of slowly but surely been moving into kind of more of an info war, uh, more of a digitalized form of combat where, it kind of also started in World War II, where we started limited resources from, the enemy, if you will. We stopped them getting the ability to have uranium and then all the other stuff like heavy water and all that kind of whatnot, technology that's necessary in order to build up certain technologies. So, especially since these are kind of rare earth metals that are necessary to kind of move humanity a little bit further in doing more research and whatnot, it definitely, I don't know, it's definitely a hindrance, I would say, towards mankind as a whole. At the same time, nations are just trying to protect certain things that they see as necessary for themselves to kind of survive, if you will. So I don't know. Definitely an interesting world. I know I heard like Russia gave a nuke or whatnot to another country. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but I think it was Belarus or something like that. Um, I guess they still have control of said weapons, but definitely interesting because I know that goes against um, UN policies as well as a lot of other world treaties that have been signed.
Yeah, I'm not sure Russia cares anymore about all these other world treaties. I think everybody's kind of made it fairly plain as far as where they stand on aggression towards Russia, with how much that the West has been supporting the Ukraine. Um, and I think at this point there's there's a lot of conflict going on everywhere, and it's just really sad to see. Um, Kind of wanting to bring it back towards our world of the Bitcoin servers and repair game. It's I think that our services as an industry, like the ASIC repair service industry, we go to, if conflict, open conflict, we have another pandemic, we have all this stuff is just supply chain shortages, right? And it becomes more highly valued to keep those servers running if you have to have the right team in place to be able to, or the systems in place to be able to keep those operating at peak performance. And if you have limited access to replacement parts, well, now you got to be able to fix the old parts, right? Now being able to fix something
Yep.
that's used in circulation. I mean, for just look at the S9s, how many times those were fixed and put back into circulation. But the S9s compared to the S19s, I mean, dwarfed in comparison as far as the amount of production, right? I mean, how many thousands and hundreds of thousands of S19 series units have been pumped into the marketplace, compared to how many S9s were produced at the time. There's a huge gap here in being able to keep the operation running. And I think that the days where the machine prices are going to be so cheap that people are just going to not really want to invest in repair. I think those days probably will be coming to an end very quickly, especially if we go find ourselves in an open conflict with supply chain shutting down on to Asia. So I think
Yeah,
I think it's important.
definitely. Definitely can see how there's a high probability that we won't see any newer models coming out as often as we have. Um, which also, yeah, definitely would make it so that way a lot of the older models will have to be staying in production. And so a lot of the companies out there are definitely going to need a lot more repair done because they don't have very good environments to begin with. So they're going to start failing when they need them to stay up and running. And yeah, it's definitely going to open up the door for, we already have a shortage on technicians, so it'll definitely put a stress on that sector as well.
Yeah, and I think companies should really start looking at their long-term strategy at this point. I think the industry did a great job at figuring out the power market very, very fast, right? I think we figured out over the course of 2020 to 2023, it was like figure out the power game, right? And then figure out the infrastructure build out. And I think our industry did very, very well with that. But there's a lot of that is not to make it, not to sound like it's not intelligent people. I think these guys are really intelligent, but a lot of it is just contract negotiation and figuring out how to do contracts. Um, when it comes to the repairing of the printed circuit boards, so that's a career path that these guys have to keep doing every day to maintain proficiency and a skill set. So it is in my opinion, I think it's a very undervalued skill set. But I think that as time goes on, looking at the long-term strategy of a 10-year time horizon or a 20-year time horizon for hosting sites or for managed sites or for self-mining sites, now is the time to start looking at how do we incorporate routine maintenance and repair procedures. How do we fold this into a system that makes sense? And because it takes time, it takes a long time to be able to build the technician base and the skill set base, and anybody that you're bringing on your team. So I think this is a great opportunity right now. This is the time to really be focusing on how do I keep my operation going for the next 10, 20 years, and I'm going to start building my team to to the same size as I want to build my operation, because trying to come in up with realistic expectations of management of uptime, and what is the real cost, and everything that goes into managing a site, I think is what we're really starting to learn as an industry right now.
Yeah, we also got the halving coming up here shortly, so
Yep.
it's definitely going to be very interesting seeing what happens.
Yep. Yes, it will. Yes, it will. So, with that, I have to go, unfortunately, but this is always a great conversation, and it's good. It just seems like every week, like we've only been doing this a few weeks now, but it seems like every week there's more intense things to talk about. Just in the 3 weeks that we've been doing this, it's like, man, these topics, these issues just keep getting more and more serious.
Yeah,
But
it seems everything keeps escalating a little bit by little bit,
yeah,
for sure.
and things are happening fast. So I think everybody needs to pay attention. Everybody needs to pay attention.
Yeah, and we'll do our best to keep on the main topics that we see that come up every week. So, yeah,
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. All righty, sir. Well, we appreciate you. Keep
you
doing
as
what you're
well.
doing. Keep doing what you're doing up there.
Yes, sir. Well, take care.
All right.
Chat later. Bye.